Hey my fellow friends, it's Chris from Shughead Gaming, bringing you my review for Warhammer 40,000 Battle Sister, developed and published by Pixel Toys. Battle Sister is currently only available for the Quest, with a PC version coming in 2021. The game retails for around $27, but of course, that depends on your region. This review will be based on the Quest 2 version. Welcome to the grim darkness of the far future. Experience the war-torn universe of Warhammer 40,000 for the first time in VR. As an unstoppable battle sister, you will wield authentic, super powerful weapons and abilities while battling against the hideous forces of chaos who threaten all humanity. This is all very epic stuff, and truthfully, beyond a passing interest in the world and its lore, I have little to no fan bias going on here. So, stick with me while I tear it apart and see what all the fuss is about. As always, guys, if you like this video, please hit that like button. It not only helps out my channel, but VR gaming as a whole. And if you'd like to see more VR content from me, please consider subscribing. And for video updates, make sure you hit that bell icon. Let's kick things off with a look at graphics. Playing through Battle Sister left me with a similar dichotomy of opinions as I had when playing the recently released Star Wars Tales from the Galaxy's Edge. On one hand, both games are incredible achievements on the standalone Quest hardware, taking on ambitious outside environments, exciting action sequences, and all while aiming to be faithful to the licensed source material. And yes, both games with their rich lore and fan service to pull from are incredible to see realized in wondrous virtual reality. However, while both games do pull off these experiences to an admirable degree, they also both wear the compromises and shortcuts on their sleeve that were required to get these games to run on what is still essentially powerful cell phones strapped to our faces. Often making me wonder if these games and much-loved franchises wouldn't be better served running on more powerful hardware where they could really deliver. Battle Sister on my Quest 2, regardless of whether I was shooting down corridors or running and gunning in the game's exterior segments, managed to keep everything pleasantly sharp in the headset. However, achieving this wasn't going to come without compromises, as evidenced by a reliance on repetitive and blurry textures, baked-in lighting techniques, janky character animations, PS2-era character designs, and some rather aggressive foveated rendering that has world detail dropping off almost 20 feet away from your viewpoint. But for the most part, it does work, with Pixel Toys keeping the proceedings fairly fresh with enough level variation, while wisely basking the levels in darkness where it made sense, and also keeping set pieces smaller when possible. That being said, they still try to keep the action hectic enough, even if that means enemies come in smaller waves. In addition, Battle Sister does flex from time to time with some surprisingly open areas, but these certainly do show the hardware limitations the most, with a hefty drop in texture detail. For comparison's sake, even the amount of on-screen action, level design, and detail constraints mirror much of the Star Wars Galaxy Edge game, so if you played that, you know exactly what I'm talking about here. And while Battle Sister can come off a little bland at times, it certainly nails the fan service, offering some truly awesome weapon designs and ensuring to take advantage of the real-world skill like only VR can provide. Case in point, standing next to an 8-foot Space Marine for Warhammer fans could very likely be a religious experience, and alone worth the price of admission. And, well, I get that fans are likely just going to be grateful to have this experience in VR. I can't help but feel that these types of experiences would better serve not only the franchises they represent, but VR gaming as a whole, if they didn't have to neuter the visuals, and as a result, the overall experience at almost every turn. Sure, this game is very serviceable and impressive on this hardware, but it also feels like VR from years past, lacking much of the polish and attention to detail we are now seeing in the industry. At the end of the day, I know it's a numbers game, and the Quest's impressive install base is an amazing thing for VR right now, but I think Warhammer probably deserved better. Sound is up next.
The Emperor's light burns all heretics and mutants. You are far from the cloister, sister.
I am Ophelia, and my sister Rosalina is close by.
Warhammer 40,000 Battle Sister again follows suit with the most recent Star Wars Quest entry, as it benefits greatly from source material, fan expectations, and likely a sound vault that ensures a Warhammer game sounds like a Warhammer game. Personally, I thought the guns lacked the volume one would expect from weapons that were literally blowing off body parts, but gun sounds along with other world sound effects work well together to create an atmosphere the visuals simply could not. Unfortunately, it's not all good, as the lack of polish often felt in the visuals creep in here on the sound side of things, as I found certain things either felt a little undercooked or just lacked sounds entirely. I mean, seriously, I don't think the hulking Space Marines were exactly stealthy, and yet here they walk without so much of a whisper. This isn't the norm, but it certainly happened enough to distract from the quality of the experience. Voice work, however, is handled expertly. The writing is a bit bland for my taste, as most of the lore went right over my head, but characters I met certainly sold me on the fact that all of mankind was on the line. Special mention to the Space Marine character though, as the actor perfectly embodied the heft and gravitas I would expect from such a figure. Finally, the game is wrapped up in a very competent score that ranges from tribal beats to a full-on symphonic wave of cinematic quality goodness. This may not be a AAA game in the slightest, but the music sure wants you to think so. And that brings us to gameplay. Like I previously mentioned, I have very little background when it comes to the Warhammer series. As such, I lacked much of the context for what was going on here in Battle Sister. And while I'm sure fans will no doubt be smiling ear to ear with the fan service, the game itself really only explains itself enough to get gamers into the action. As such, if like me this is your jumping off point into Warhammer's insanely deep and dense lore, all you need to know is that you are a badass chick, part of an elite group of powerful women, and nothing short of the galaxy is at stake. Now, here's your gun and sword, point them at anything that doesn't look like you. Now yes, there's slightly more to the setup than that, but there really isn't when it comes to the gameplay itself. Warhammer 40,000 Battle Sister is through and through a corridor-based arcade shooter that sometimes tries to be a little more, with the inclusion of climbing mechanics and a small selection of powers such as force push and the ability to slow time. But all of these just feel like afterthoughts to the core shoot 'em up gameplay. You have 2 holsters on your hips, 2 on your back, as well as an ammo pouch and a grenade holster on your belt. Consequently, weapon ammo is reloaded simply by ejecting a mag and placing the empty weapon by your ammo pouch. A mechanic that I initially wasn't a fan of, but came to enjoy as I found myself often dual wielding and just out of hands. Ammo and weapons at your disposal are for the most part picked up at select locations in the battlefield, but annoyingly never from enemies dropped in battle. A point that really hurt when running low on a given ammo type, only to see that same gun disappear 2 seconds later along with the downed enemy who held it. Weapon variety here is decent, consisting of bolter pistols, submachine guns, shotguns, flamethrowers, chainsaws, well, basically, your average Gear of War loadout. And honestly, if Gears of War went VR, lost its cover mechanic and much of its intensity, this might be what it would feel like. The shooting gameplay itself is actually a bit of fun, with dual wielding, dismembering melee combat, and some light ammo management coming together to make for some fun, if a bit shallow gameplay. AI is pretty dumb here though, making most enemies simply cannon fodder. Add to this the game's inability to ever really throw enough enemies at you to feel challenging, and over the course of the game's 5-hour or so campaign, the game does begin to feel repetitive quick. Later stages do throw in the odd boss fight, but within the first few hours you will have seen just about everything the game has in the way of enemy or combat variety, making the remaining game simply more of the same. Now, I love a brainless shooter as much as the next guy, but unfortunately guns just never felt powerful enough, lacking any real sense of impact when hitting their targets. An issue that carried over to the melee combat that lacked much of the weight and visceralness of the combat Walking Dead Saints and Sinners so perfectly nailed. Tracking here in Battle Sister was spot on, and the controls worked well either sitting or standing, with standing being recommended for both access to hip holsters, but more importantly, to better work around the game's mandatory click turning by physically turning yourself. Likely a decision made for performance sake, but still a real misstep at this point in VR. VR sickness shouldn't be an issue here though, as movement speed in-game is never too quick, with running being nothing more than a quick dash. Additionally, the click turning in conjunction with optional teleportation and blinders should ensure most can play this comfortable. And finally, that brings us to fun factor and my final review. Warhammer 40,000 Battle Sister is a very basic VR shooter that is impressive on the Quest hardware, but lacks a lot of polish and depth of gameplay to make it much of an interest beyond that of a Quest hardware showcase for shooter fans. As a shooter, it is certainly some dumb fun, but just lacks anything in the way of progression or level upgrades, and it just lacks anything special to keep the interest there beyond a short playthrough. As you guys know, I hate numbered review scores and instead rate games on a basis of buy it, burn it, or wait on it. I think Star Wars games all too often get the Nintendo pass in that they are received better than they are simply because of the emotional attachment to the source material. I think Warhammer 40,000 Battle Sister might fare similarly with fans of the series, simply because despite this game's shallow gameplay and visual shortcomings, it will undeniably deliver the desired nerd boner that they're likely dreaming of. For those of you, and you know who you are, this is likely worth the money. For other shooter fans though on the Quest, I think it's much better left for a sale or until the planned co-op Horde mode drops in early 2021, as playing with friends makes everything better. Anyways guys, that's it for me. Thanks for supporting the channel. If you like this video, please hit that like button. And if you'd like to see more VR content from me, please consider subscribing, and for video updates, hit that bell icon. Thanks for stopping by guys, and I'll catch you on the next video.